Hey, Hannah Mouse One here. Welcome to an artwork video. I feel like I don't do these very often anymore, but it's just been my granddad's birthday and I wanted to show you how I made his present, the pirate ship themed shoulder bag that I made. He's been saying that he wanted a small bag for a while now, and I know he loves all things ship related, so I thought that this would be perfect for him. I started by taking the sturdiest beige fabric I had and cut out the pieces that will form the structure of the bag, measuring each one out and drawing the outline in a chalk, and then cutting it out with fabric scissors. I wanted to make sure that the bag was big enough to fit his essentials, his wallet, tobacco, keys, phone. That's literally all he ever needs when he's out the house. And I gave each piece a 1 centimeter border to allow me to neatly sew them together while still accommodating for the necessary space inside. And for the pattern, I wanted to emulate the look of how maps are often divided into squares with a patchwork effect. So I cut some 7 centimeter by 7 centimeter squares from a variety of neutrally coloured fabrics, which will allow for a grid of 5 by 5 squares with a 1 centimeter border around the edge of each piece. And then for the front and side panels, I stitched these little squares together into a grid. For the front piece, this is a 3 by 4 grid of squares, and for the two side panels, it's a 2 by 4. And to hide the seams between the squares, I pinned and stitched the pieces so that one lays flat on the other, so that you have to unfold them to create the patchwork surface. I then sewed these patchwork pieces onto the base panels that I cut out earlier. I sewed them on so that they were inside out, leaving a hole in the bottom, and then inverted them and patched the hole. Again, this allowed me to hide any ugly seams on the inside of the panels, keeping the outside of the bag super neat and tidy. I made a top flap in the same patchwork style. The process was exactly the same, except for the fact that both the base panel and one of the tiles had a hole for a button to go through and would thereby hold the flap in place. I cut out the slits, hemmed up the edges, and made sure that the holes were aligned when I sewed the pieces together. I went around the edge of the hole and stitched the two pieces of fabric together. I added more detail to the pieces, starting with the front panel. I used a thin thread to create the effect of islands on the patchwork map, and also added the pirate ship button to where the hole in the top flap will overlay this panel. I used a thicker embroidery thread to add more prominent details to the panel, with a series of stitches leading to an X to imply the route that the ship is planning to take, as well as an old-fashioned piratey compass in the bottom corner, to which I added some more subtle details with the same thinner thread that I used to draw on the islands. For the top panel, the bottom half of the panel needed the same design as the top half of the front panel, because when they overlap, because the flap is closed, the design needs to line up and continue between both. So I did the same stitches to mark out the ship's charted course, and did the same design for the islands. For the side panels, I kept these fairly simple, just extending the islands so that they wrapped around onto these and the design continues. No extra embroidered flourishes or details or anything, I really just kept it at that. And when I had these side panels done, I sewed them to the front panel in a way where the stitches are hidden from the outside and act almost like a hinge, or more accurately like the binding part of a ring binder notepad or something. And to make the complete bag shape, I sewed on the back and base panels that I cut out earlier, again making a point of hiding the stitching as best I could by initially sewing the bag inside out, so that the stitching that I did on the outside of the piece as I sewed it would be hidden away on the inside once I inverted it back to the correct position. For the top panel, I wanted to add a zip layer under the flap, so I cut out one of the base pieces to make space to sew in said zip, which I subsequently did before sewing these pieces onto the main bag structure that I just made to cover up the only remaining opening side. Once that was secure, I made sure to sew down the loose ends of the zip and turn the bag so that it was no longer inside out, and sewed on the top flap as to cover the panel with the zip. I gave the bag 2 rope handles. I made these by cutting some rope down to the appropriate lengths and then creating little pouches to cover the ends of the rope. These serve to A, make the rope ends nice and neat, B, give me something to actually sew into when attaching the handles to the bag, and C, stop the rope itself from unraveling into 3 separate threads. Of the 2 handles, the first one that I added was shorter and is attached to the top of the bag, with the handle ends being tucked under the top flap, and the other one is longer, designed to hang over the shoulder, leaving the bag at around hip height, and this one is attached to the back of the bag with the handle ends being at the 2 top corners. And other than a few touch-ups, tidying up a few frayed ends and the like, we are done. I was super happy with how this came out. My granddad was super happy when he received it, and I think it's so cool and unique. And yeah, apart from that, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe if you did. Let us know if you see more of. Join the Discord, link down below, and I'll see you next week with another video. Bye!